If you had asked me a year ago to list the things I was certain about, my marriage would have topped that list. Not just because I was in love, though I was, deeply, but because we had built a life so stable it felt fireproof. House in the suburbs, matching coffee mugs, even a shared Spotify playlist that included both of our guilty pleasures. She liked 90s boy bands. I pretended not to. Her name was Lauren, and she used to look at me like I was the only person on earth who truly understood her. Spoiler, I wasn't. But that's getting ahead of myself. The day it all began unraveling was the kind of day you wouldn't expect to go down in personal history. It was sunny, calm, uneventful. I came home from work early, something I hadn't done in weeks. I thought I'd surprise her. Maybe we'd grab dinner at that little Thai place she loved, the one with the awkward waiter who always said blessings instead of goodbye. When I stepped inside, I knew something was off. The silence was heavy, like the house had been holding its breath. In the air, it smelled faintly of cologne. Not mine. The cheap, musky kind you find in gym bags and bad decisions. Lauren, I called out. No answer. But the bedroom door was ajar. I stepped in, expecting, what? I'm not sure. But definitely not what I found. There, in our bed, were the ghosts of movements. Rumpled sheets, a half-buttoned blouse that wasn't Lauren's, and a necktie, definitely not mine, hanging on the bedpost like a flag of surrender. Or conquest. I didn't lose it. I didn't scream or punch walls. I just stood there, stared, and took a mental snapshot. I think I even nodded once. Calm recognition. Like my brain had already guessed, and this was just the evidence confirming the theory. The door creaked behind me. Oh, said Lauren, voice like a child caught stealing candy. You're early. I turned slowly, catching the flicker of guilt in her eyes. Guilt, not remorse. Big difference. Am I interrupting? I asked. My voice was calm. Too calm. She hesitated. It's not what it looks like. I smiled. Not because it was funny. Because it was predictable. Is that right? She opened her mouth, probably to deliver the usual cliches. We've been drifting, or he means nothing, but I raised a hand. Don't. Just don't. She looked away. That was the last time I looked at her the same way. The funny thing about betrayal is how quickly it shrinks the world around you. Our house, once filled with warmth and idle Sunday laughter, now echoed like an empty museum. Every room still had her fingerprints, but none of them felt like hers anymore. I slept on the couch that night. Not because I was trying to make a point, but because I couldn't stand to lie next to someone who could lie so easily. The next morning, we danced the weirdest tango known to man, cohabiting through crisis. She made coffee like always, 2 sugars in mine. I drank it. She didn't say a word. Neither did I. Just 2 people pretending not to notice the elephant flipping the kitchen table in the background. So she finally said, leaning against the counter like a parole officer. We should probably talk. I didn't look up from my mug. Should we? You didn't seem all that interested in talking yesterday. That's not fair. Neither was your extracurricular activity. Life's funny that way. Silence. She exhaled. It didn't mean anything. There it was. The Hall of Fame of excuses. I almost clapped. You cheated on me with a man who wears Axe body spray and owns a Bluetooth earpiece. But thank you for letting me know it was meaningless. I was lonely. You were bored, I corrected. Big difference. We stared at each other. I could feel it in her eyes. She was waiting for me to ask who he was. As if knowing the guy's name would make it make sense. But I already knew. It was Kyle. My coworker. My friend. Lauren didn't confirm it, but she didn't deny it either. That was enough. That evening, I went to the mantel, picked up the photo of us from our 5th anniversary, and quietly took it down. Set it face down in a drawer. A symbolic burial. She watched me from the hallway. So what happens now? I gave a half shrug. Now? We wait. Because I'm not done. Not yet. Her eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm not going to shout or throw things or give you the satisfaction of drama. But I'm also not going to forget. You put a crack in something solid, Lauren. Eventually, it's going to break. And it did. The next few days were a masterclass in domestic awkwardness. 2 strangers occupying the same house, orbiting each other like moons caught in the same lonely gravity. I kept my distance. She kept her silence. And in the middle of it all was that awful truth sitting between us like an uninvited guest. Lauren started working late again. Allegedly. She claimed it was because of a new project at the firm. I nodded, smiled, even wished her good luck. The kind of smile you give when you know someone's lying and you're just waiting to see how deep they'll dig. I wasn't idle. Oh no. I was observing. calculating. And I was calling Kyle's extension at the office. Marketing, this is Kyle, he answered, chipper as ever. Kyle, I said, how's that new project going? A beat of silence. What new project? The one Lauren's been working late for. Another pause, this one longer. Right, yeah, she mentioned that. I just didn't realize it was something from our department. Interesting. Click. I didn't need more than that. Kyle had always been slick, always the guy with a new smartwatch or a story about the time he met some B-list celebrity at a mixer. But what he didn't have was a poker face. Even over the phone, I heard him fold. So I called my cousin Adam, who just so happens to work for a private security firm. He owed me a favor. The kind you only collect when you're past pleasantries and deep into the quiet rage part of grief. Within 48 hours, I had photos. Dozens of them. Lauren and Kyle. Parking garage embraces. Restaurant smiles. One shot of them exiting a hotel, hand in hand, her hair still wet from the shower. I stared at that photo for a long time. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I finally, officially, had proof. When Lauren came home that night, I was in the kitchen cooking steak. Medium rare, her favorite. She looked surprised. What's the occasion? She asked. I handed her a plate and poured her wine. Just felt like being generous, I said with a calm I didn't even know I had. Eat up. You'll need the protein. For what? I smiled. The fallout. Lauren didn't touch her steak. She just sat there, fork in hand, eyes fixed on mine like she was trying to decode a language she'd never learned. I, on the other hand, savored every bite. The sizzle of the pan still lingered in the air, along with the scent of rosemary and searing justice. You're being weird, she finally said. I'm being precise, I replied, cutting another piece. There's a difference. She put her fork down. Okay, what is this? What's going on? I slid an envelope across the table. Manila. Sealed. Heavy in the way a truth becomes once it's finally printed. She didn't reach for it. What's in there? She asked, her voice tight. Photographs. Timestamped. GPS tagged. A real highlight reel. Think of it as your anniversary gift. A montage of you and Kyle. She blinked. There it was. The crack in the mask. The quick stutter of her breath. The way her eyes flicked down, then back up, searching for an exit in a room with no doors. You followed me? No, I said. I hired someone better. I wanted it done right. You know me. I'm thorough. She opened the envelope slowly, like it might bite. One by one, she pulled out the photos. Her eyes scanned them, her hands trembled, but her mouth remained stubbornly closed. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I laughed once, sharp. You don't accidentally fall into hotel beds, Lauren. This isn't a sitcom. There's no laugh track for betrayal. Her lip curled. You think I'm the only one who gave up on this marriage? You've been emotionally unavailable for years. Oh, we're doing that? The reverse Uno defense? I was lonely, she said, more forcefully this time. You had a therapist, I said, standing. You chose a coworker. A man who once ate buffalo wings off our wedding china during Super Bowl Sunday. That stung. I saw it in her flinch. Mark, she started. No. I cut in, tone hardening. This isn't where you cry, I hug you, and we pretend none of it happened. This is where we acknowledge that the life we built is officially condemned. And I'm not rebuilding it with a woman who doesn't see the difference between a marriage and a convenience store. She stood too, nostrils flaring. What are you saying? I'm saying it's over. You can have Kyle. You can have his gym selfies, his startup ideas that never pan out, his Bluetooth earpiece he wears like a crown. What you can't have anymore is me. She crossed her arms. You think I'm just going to walk out? No, I said, smiling. I think you're going to be escorted. Right on cue, the doorbell rang. She frowned. I walked over and opened it. Hey, man, said the mover, clipboard in hand. 3-bedroom job, right? Yep, I said. She'll show you what's hers. Lauren's mouth fell open. You're throwing me out? No, I said. You already did that. The night you picked Kyle over this house, this marriage, and whatever part of your conscience was left. She was shaking now. This is insane. You can't just. I held up a hand. I'm not asking. You have 1 hour. They'll take your things to your sister's place. You can figure out the rest from there. The movers stepped inside. Lauren looked like someone had unplugged her from the wall, frozen mid-rebuttal, speechless. I walked upstairs, past the guest room where I'd been sleeping, and into our bedroom. My bedroom now. I shut the door, Let the sounds of boxes being taped and drawers opening drift like distant thunder. 10 minutes later, there was a knock. She peeked in. Her eyes were red. "You really planned all this," she said. "No," I said. "You did. I just made it efficient." She hesitated. "Do you hate me?" I looked at her for a long time. "No, but I pity you. And that might be worse." She looked away. 30 minutes later, she was gone. The silence that followed her departure wasn't peaceful. It wasn't that cinematic hush where a character breathes deep and smiles to the sunset. No, this silence had weight. Like the air itself was grieving. The house was still. Unnaturally so. Her perfume no longer floated through the hallways, but traces of her lingered in small, ridiculous ways. A hair tie on the bathroom counter. One sock in the dryer. A grocery list stuck to the fridge that said, almond milk, eggs, honesty. I chuckled at that last one. Then, to my surprise, I cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet, steady leak from a dam that had held too long. Not for her. Not for what we had. But for the version of me that believed in it so blindly. That guy deserved a proper send-off. A week passed. Then two. Friends started checking in. Texts. Voicemails. The occasional, "Hey, man, you okay?" As though I had caught the flu. Not a betrayal. Kyle didn't call. Of course not. But his wife did. Yeah, turns out Kyle wasn't exactly single. Her name was Rachel. I knew her only in passing. She had bright eyes, a sharp voice, and a toddler named Max who thought I was a superhero because I once helped him pick up his juice box. Rachel called on a Thursday. "Mark, it's Rachel. Kyle's wife. Or ex-wife. Soon-to-be ex." I said nothing. Just let the silence do the heavy lifting. I just wanted to say, "I know. Everything. Still nothing." I found the emails. The hotel receipts. The second phone. And then I found your name. "I'm sorry you had to be dragged into his mess." "I wasn't dragged," I finally said. "I was elbowed off a cliff." She chuckled, bitterly. "Yeah, that sounds about right." We talked for a while. Oddly enough, it wasn't awkward. Two wounded generals comparing battlefield notes. She told me she'd kicked him out. Took half the bank account and custody of Max, said Kyle cried, which neither of us believed. "I should have seen it," she said at one point. "Same," I replied. "You want to egg his car sometime?" she asked, deadpan. I laughed. Tempting. But no, I'm aiming higher. She paused. "What does that mean?" I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I wasn't entirely sure yet. But something had started brewing inside me. Not anger, no, that had cooled. This was something different. Sharper. Cleaner. A desire for justice, yes, but also closure. Precision closure. The kind that doesn't require shouting or blood, but leaves a scar nonetheless. So I did what any recently single, emotionally damaged man would do. I made a spreadsheet. A real one. Tabs, color-coded cells, formulas. I broke down every shared expense Lauren and I had: mortgage, utilities, insurance, the dog she insisted we adopt, and then never walked. I prepared a legal document outlining the split, down to the cent. I even listed the groceries she'd Venmo me for and then forget to pay. When I handed it to my lawyer, she blinked. "Is this a forensic audit?" "Something like that." She whistled. "You're either the most emotionally repressed man I've met, or the most dangerous. Can it be both?" She smiled. "You're going to be fine. And you know what?" She was right. I started jogging again. I replaced the bedsheets, painted the bedroom, took a sledgehammer to the cheap IKEA dresser Lauren always said she hated but never replaced. It felt oddly therapeutic, like vengeance, but on furniture. Then one afternoon, I got an email from Lauren. Subject: "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied. Reply: "We already did. You just weren't listening." A minute later, another email popped up. Subject: "I made a mistake." I didn't open it. Didn't need to. Mistakes are when you forget an anniversary, not when you coordinate hotel meetups behind someone's back. So I did the healthiest thing I'd done in months. I deleted it. But I kept the photo. The one of us on that beach trip 3 years ago. She's laughing, I'm sunburned, and we look like the world couldn't touch us. I didn't keep it out of nostalgia. I kept it as a reminder. Even the sunniest memories can cast the darkest shadows. And I wasn't stepping back into the dark. I never expected to see Kyle again. I assumed he'd vanish like all cowards do, behind blocked numbers, awkward silence, and excuses mailed in by second-hand sources. But fate, or maybe just the universe's sense of humor, had other plans. It was at a cafe, of all places. One of those modern joints with minimalist tables and jazz music that makes you feel like you're interrupting someone's thoughts by existing. I was meeting a contractor about remodeling the guest bathroom. And there he was, Kyle, wearing a gray cardigan, yes, a cardigan, and sipping something with oat milk like he was auditioning for a sad indie film. He didn't notice me at first. I had the high ground. Sat in a booth near the back with full visibility of the door, because I don't trust the world to give me fair warnings anymore. But the moment he looked up and spotted me, his face did a triple somersault through surprise, shame, and a pathetic attempt at casual confidence. "Mark," he said, approaching my table like a man tiptoeing through landmines. "Kyle," I replied, calm as steel. "You forgot to knock first." He gave a half smile, hands in pockets. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Funny, I said the same thing the day you started sleeping with my wife." He winced. "Good. Look," he said, sliding into the seat across from me without invitation, "I know I messed up." "You didn't mess up. You made choices." He nodded, rubbing the back of his neck like he was auditioning for forgiveness. "Yeah, I did. And they were the wrong ones." I leaned forward. "Why? Because Rachel left you? Or because the new car smell wore off Lauren quicker than you expected?" He didn't answer right away. Just stared at the floor like it might offer him a better line. "Lauren's staying with her sister now," he said finally. "She doesn't talk to me anymore." I almost laughed. "Let me guess. You thought the excitement would last longer than the guilt." "No. I just thought we had something real." I shook my head, my smile hard and humorless. "You had stolen fruit, Kyle. It always tastes sweeter until the worms crawl out." He swallowed hard. "You know," I added, "the worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the stupidity. You could have come to me. Said something. Owned it. I didn't want to hurt you," he said. "Mission failed," I deadpanned. He looked down again. "You didn't just nuke my marriage, Kyle," I continued. "You detonated 2 families. You turned a quiet life into a courtroom drama. And for what? A few secret rendezvous in conference rooms and holiday in rooms with discount soap?" He had the decency to look ashamed. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, voice low but firm. "You and I will never speak again. Not in person. Not online. If I see your name on anything I'm involved with, I walk." "Understood," he murmured. "You don't get to understand, Kyle. You just nod and vanish." He nodded. And then he stood. "I am sorry, man." I stared at him. Cold. Flat. "And I'm healing, Kyle. Don't confuse the two." He left without another word. The contractor arrived 10 minutes later, late and apologetic. He tried to ask how I was. I gave him measurements instead. That night, I didn't tell anyone about the run-in. Not my friends, not my therapist, not even the echoing voice in my head that sometimes likes to replay old memories on loop. I just poured a drink, turned off my phone, and sat on the back porch. The sky was clear. Stars blinking like indifferent gods. The wind was calm. It wasn't peace, not yet. But it was silence I could finally live with. Revenge is a dish best served cold, they say. But I've learned it's better when it's plated with a side of legal acumen and just a dash of theatrical flair. It started with a spreadsheet, like most dangerous things do in my world. I'm a systems analyst by trade. Numbers are my native language. You give me chaos, I give you charts. You show me pain, I'll convert it to a pivot table. Lauren had left behind a digital footprint that would make a forensic accountant weep with joy. Shared accounts. Venmo transfers. Uber receipts that didn't match her supposed whereabouts. It wasn't just betrayal, it was trackable. I compiled it all. Every date, every dollar, every overlap between her lies and my loyalty. But I didn't just keep it for myself. No, I sent it to her. Anonymous email. Subject line, "You forgot to log out." Attached, a beautifully curated PDF titled "The Price of Secrets." Her response came in 20 minutes flat. "Lauren, what do you want?" My reply? "Me, to make sure you understand I'm not stupid. That's all. For now." I could practically hear her breathing hard through the screen. But I didn't want money. I didn't want an apology. I wanted clarity. And clarity has a way of hurting more than fists ever could. So I made a list. Not of her sins, those were already documented, but of every single person who enabled her. Kyle, of course. But also Linda and James, the coworkers who covered for her. Her sister, who once told me, "You're lucky to have Lauren, you know. She's a free spirit." Free spirit. That's what they call someone when impulsive liar sounds too harsh for Thanksgiving dinner. Each of them received a copy of the PDF. No message. No explanation. Just the file. What they did with it was up to them. But I made sure they knew. Silence has consequences. That same week, I started seeing someone. No, not like that. A therapist. The real kind. Not the friends who say you should really let it go, man, while checking football scores. Her name was Dr. Patel. Wore glasses that made her look like she saw through walls. On our first session, she asked, "So what brings you here?" "Infidelity," I said. "Not mine." "And how are you handling it?" "Productively," I said, which made her raise an eyebrow. "I've organized my heartbreak into folders." She nodded. "That sounds exhausting." "Not for me," I said. "I like structure. It helps me stay sane." She studied me. "What would it look like if you let yourself be angry?" I shook my head. "I'm not here to scream or cry. I'm here to understand." Dr. Patel didn't press. She just nodded again, scribbled something, and moved on. But her question lingered. What would it look like if I let myself be angry? I didn't know. But part of me was starting to wonder if maybe, just maybe, anger wasn't the enemy. Maybe it was the signal flare that let the world know I was done taking punches. A week later, my lawyer called. "Mark, we finalized everything. The settlement's done." "And the clause?" I asked. "Page 6. Non-disparagement. Mutual. She can't trash you in public. You can't trash her. Unless new evidence surfaces." I smiled. "Oh, that's convenient." Because new evidence had, in fact, surfaced. Emails between Lauren and her supervisor, who, it turns out, had been protecting her from HR for months. They talked about clearing her schedule so she could sneak out. One email actually said, "Hope Mark never finds out. That man deserves better. You're right, Gary from HR." I did. I printed that email, framed it, hung it above the toilet. Lauren's reputation at work took a hit. Quiet whispers. Project removals. She didn't get fired, but she got moved. To a desk near the copier, from what I hear. From corner office to corner of the hallway. Poetic. Kyle? Last I checked, Rachel filed for full custody of their son. Word spread. Kyle's name isn't as shiny around the office anymore. His last LinkedIn update? Taking a step back to reassess life priorities. Translation. Hiding from everything. And me? I bought new sheets. Adopted a dog. Not the one Lauren picked out. A different one. A stubborn bulldog named Harold who snores louder than he barks. We get along fine. I'm not angry anymore. Not really. Because I didn't just survive betrayal. I organized it, weaponized it, and moved on with receipts. The strange thing about healing is how ordinary it feels once it starts. You'd expect trumpets or at least an internal cheerleader yelling, "You did it, man." But no, it's subtle. One morning you realize your hands aren't shaking when her name pops up on paperwork. You drink coffee and it tastes like coffee, not bitterness. I began to enjoy the quiet. Mornings with Harold snoring on my foot. Evenings where I cooked for one and didn't have to ask if she wanted quinoa or rice. I went back to the gym, got back into reading. Built a new shelf. Painted the living room. Kyle was a ghost now. The whispers at work had died down. Lauren? Occasionally I'd hear her name mentioned by someone who hadn't gotten the memo. "How's the missus?" they'd ask, and I'd smile. "She's exploring other hobbies." It wasn't happiness yet, but it was clean. And clean, after what I'd been through, felt like a miracle. Closure doesn't always show up wearing a tuxedo. Sometimes it stumbles in wearing gym shorts and a confused expression. I ran into Lauren again at the DMV. She looked smaller. Like a version of herself with the saturation turned down. Hair tied back, no makeup, hoodie from a 10K we ran together 5 years ago. Her eyes met mine and froze. "Mark," she said, half a breath. "Lauren." Silence. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again." That was the idea. She opened her mouth, probably to apologize, or at least fake a version of it. But I raised a hand. "No hard feelings," I said, flatly. "Just no feelings." That hit harder than any insult. She looked like she wanted to ask something. Instead, she nodded and returned to filling out her form. That was it. No grand ending. No begging. Just quiet understanding that whatever we were had turned to dust. I walked out feeling 10 pounds lighter. Now, I promised you revenge. And I'm a man of my word. The legal kind was complete. The emotional kind was well underway. But there was one last piece, a finale. The part where I took back my narrative. So I wrote it all down. Every moment. Every lie. Every painful discovery and bitter realization. I changed names, of course. But I left the truth intact. All the betrayal, all the growth, all the what I could muster in between. I published it anonymously, called it The Quiet Divorce. A week later, it went viral on a forum for relationships. People ate it up. Who is this guy? This reads like therapy with punchlines. This is my worst fear told with style. I never admitted it was me, but I watched as Lauren's circle inevitably found it, shared it, quoted it, whispered, and she knew. Oh, she knew. Not because I told her, but because only one man could turn her betrayal into a best-selling lesson in self-respect and dry sarcasm. I don't need to swing fists or raise my voice. I just needed one good story. This one. And now you know it.